560theanswer.com, on the AM 560 mobile app, on your Alexa-powered smart speaker, and on TuneIn, iHeart, and on Odyssey. Only the biggest stories, only the biggest guests, and only the biggest opinions. This is AM 560, The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan and Amy, our next guest, served in Congress as a representative from the great state of Kansas. Also, as the CIA director and the Secretary of State under President Trump. He's a West Pointer, I should hasten to add as well. And his new book is Never Give an Inch. And I got to tell you, it's an impressive list of people that contributed blurbs for the book jacket. From Kathy Ireland to... Yeah, from Kathy Ireland to Cardinal Dolan, the Archbishop of New York. I mean, that is a wide range. That is very impressive. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, thanks for joining us. Wow.
Good catch. That is nice. It's nice to be with you all.
Yeah, that's an impressive range of friends you've got there. Well, I want to talk about the book and about your handle on the geopolitical environment. But you stirred up a bit of controversy with your book. Nikki Haley sat down with an interview for Bret Baier last week, and she was asked about this passage in your book that describes an effort that was afoot in the Trump White House to replace Mike Pence as the VP running mate in 2020. And the suggestion was that Jared Kushner was the one leading this skullduggerous effort, and that perhaps Nikki Haley was included in those conversations, which she flatly denied, saying that even in Mike's book, your book, it's just supposition. He doesn't say it actually happened. She denied that she was part of any conversations. So give us a handle on that story and the potential effort to replace Pence.
Well, Never Give an Inch isn't about palace intrigue. It's about how we deliver security for the American people, and I told that particular story because then Chief of Staff General Kelly, had told me that, and he told me that not because of the palace intrigue, but because we were focused on our mission, and every U.S. ambassador, including the U.S. ambassador to the United Nations, has a responsibility every minute to be working on that. And there were important things that went on this administration. I am proud of the work that we did. While we didn't get it right every day, I can assure you America was safer then than it is 2 years later under the handling of President Biden. And it took all 4 years to get it right. And my observation there is that people who weren't on the team hurt President Trump and me's ability to keep Americans safe. If you were focused on something else, if you were about yourself, if you couldn't stick it out, if you decided to leave the administration because it was just too hard, that's just, in my judgment, unacceptable. We had a responsibility to continue to do our work. There were a handful of us that stuck it out the entire time in the face of an onslaught from progressive media, and I regret that so many didn't. They decided to protect themselves at the expense of the country.
Well, as she is a potential presidential candidate in 24, was she one of the individuals, Nikki Haley, who was not on the team?
Yeah, I mean, that's what that story would tell. And I wasn't in the room. It's what General Kelly told me. Kellyanne Conway has confirmed that's what she thinks happened too. But be that as it may, I know this much. I was being told, as were so many, run. Everything Donald Trump touches turns to dust. Everyone around him gets blown up. You should leave, Mike. Your reputation's intact. Go. I didn't think about that for a second, and too many people did. There were people who wouldn't join the administration because, quote, Donald Trump, end of quote. This wasn't about Donald Trump. This was about serving America. And I had 1,000 days as Secretary of State, even fewer than that as CIA Director, and I treasured that privilege every single minute and tried every single minute to do my best for the American people.
Well, then what do you think, or how would you describe what happened on January 6th? Was that an insurrection?
No, it wasn't an insurrection. You had rioters. Those rioters should be prosecuted, just like the rioters who rioted in Portland, in Minneapolis, or in Atlanta this past week. We should prosecute people who violate the law. I'm a conservative. I believe in the rule of law. They should be prosecuted. And on January 6th, it was a bad day. It was a bad day for America, but it ended in a way that was noble, completing the constitutional process.
And with respect to the politics still, and then we'll get to some geopolitical stuff, I promise. You're looking at a run for presidency in 2024 as well, as I understand it. Do you stay in contact with President Trump? Have you had discussions about what 2024 might look like?
I don't talk about the things we've talked about, but I've spoken to the president a bunch of times since, 2 years now, since we left. I've spoken to him many times.
And does he say, "Hey, Mike, what's this scuttlebutt I hear?" No. I mean, so you're not going to tell us. I got it. But
I promise you, President Trump's watching. That much I can assure you. He's watching all the noise. He's watching. He's made a couple comments. One of them, I think odd. He said, "Boy, it'd be disloyal if someone like Mike ran." The truth is, it's not about loyalty to any individual. My duty was to the country.
Right.
And I think the work that we did was fantastic. I am grateful to President Trump for the privilege that he gave me for those 4 years. But one comes to believe they are the right person for the moment. They have a responsibility to actually go make that case, and then, goodness gracious, let the good people of Iowa, South Carolina, New Hampshire go sort it all out.
What was the interaction between you and President Trump like with so many of these global challenges that you faced and the accomplishments that occurred, the Abraham Accords and the posture towards communist China? How was that interaction?
Oh, goodness. I wrote about this a fair amount in Never Give an Inch. I wrote about the relationship that he and I developed. I first got to meet him for the very first time. I'd never met Donald Trump until the day I interviewed at Trump Tower to be the CIA director. And then when he chose me and then ultimately decided to give me a second opportunity, Secretary of State, every day I told him exactly what I thought, how I thought about it. If we were getting it wrong or needed to fix our policy, I tried my best to get us headed the right direction. But in the end, he was President of the United States, and my mission was to execute the things he promised the American people he would deliver. And I think as you read Never Give an Inch, you will see that we, in nearly every case, pulled that off.
And he was receptive to your advice and counsel?
Yeah, and sometimes he thought, "No, Mike, you're just wrong," and we'd talk about it some more. I recount a handful of stories in the book where I came in and had a different view than his, and we said, "All right, let's go do that." And that's exactly how it ought to be. He gave me all the space I needed as Secretary of State and as CIA director to take these men and women at CIA and get them out doing good work to keep you and every American safe.
Well, CIA, it's interesting because, of course, you inherited that from the likes of John Brennan previous to you, and we've seen his performance over the last 4 or 5 years. What was the CIA like when you got there, and how would you describe the change, if there was a significant change that occurred from the time you were there to moving over to Secretary of State?
It had been politicized by Director Brennan. They had gone around the analytic process to produce this report that was grounded in the Steele dossier that we now know for sure was unvalidated in every dimension. They'd had McKinsey come in and do a study. They were not taking any risk. And in Never Give an Inch, I talk about this. We put the CIA back in the game of conducting espionage around the world in ways that matter for the American people. I am deeply confident that the work I did with my friend Yossi Cohen, the former director of Mossad, the Israeli intelligence service, and these stories are great because these stories tell about what young men and women that join the CIA can do to keep our nation safe. And they are out there working in clandestine places all across America even today. I pray that they're safe, and I hope that my successor, Director Burns, is continuing to allow them to go out and do these important things. I think he is. I think he's a good man, and I'm counting on that, and so is every American.
With respect to the handling of classified documents, since that's been all the rage the last 6 months, is there anything surprise you about the raid on Mar-a-Lago, fast forward to the last 3 weeks of disclosures from the Biden administration?
Well, I'm surprised that so many senior leaders have so many classified documents, at least apparently, that are not where they're supposed to be. And as I've said broadly, put them back. If they're classified, get them where they're supposed to be. I don't care if you're a Democrat, a Libertarian, Republican, put them back where they're supposed to be. The Justice Department needs to investigate this. It ought to do so equitably. The fact that they raided the president's home in Mar-a-Lago and have handled the Biden thing completely differently suggests that there is enormous bias in how they're going to handle these. But I handled hundreds, thousands of classified documents during my time, both as a member of Congress when I was on the Intelligence Committee and then as CIA Director and Secretary of State. Rigid set of rules. If you make a mistake and a document gets tucked into the wrong place, it's possible. for goodness sake, put it back, apologize. Don't say you don't have any regrets. If I end up having classified documents someplace, I found out that I did, I would regret it because I might have put some young soldier, sailor, airman, Marine, I might have put their life at risk. And that's just, no leader gets to do that. So I have a blanket rule. You sign up that says you'll handle classified information properly, just do it.
Well, do you think the DOJ, I mean, in all fairness, when they raided Mar-a-Lago, they put all the classified documents, laid them out on the floor and took pictures. I didn't see that coming out of Biden's house.
No, this is again, there are two things that I think are deeply political. That's certainly the case. They are handling these two, it appears, in very different ways. It sounds like they let President Biden's personal lawyers be there. They certainly didn't do that down in Mar-a-Lago for President Trump. But second, I also watched young, more junior people who mishandled classified information be treated very differently than America's most senior leaders. It shouldn't matter if you're a private first class in the Marines or you're the Secretary of State or a congressman. You should all be held to the same standard in terms of handling that information. And I hope they will not treat one set of documents handled by a Republican or a Democrat differently, nor documents handled by someone who is a GS-12 differently than someone who's a United States Senator.
And possibly a related story, how important do you think the House Republicans' investigation into the Biden family, Jim Comer, the chairman of the Oversight Committee, House Oversight Committee, saying what this looks like a classic influence peddling operation and the classified documents potentially fold into that. How important is the work that Comer and House Republicans are going to do here?
It's important work. In Never Give an Inch, I write about the fact that for 2.5 years we suffered under the Russia hoax. I tell this story about January 6th, 2017. This is 2 weeks before President Trump is inaugurated. Jim Comey, Clapper, and Brennan came to Trump Tower and told the President of the United States he was a Russian asset. This harmed America's national security. For 2.5 years we sat under this cloud. We need to make sure that our law enforcement agencies and the FBI, the intelligence component of the FBI, aren't political. And so we need to make sure that as we continue to unpack what happened with the Biden family and all that history, we know the story of the Hunter Biden laptop just before the election in 2020, where 50 folks came out and said this looks like Russian disinformation. They certainly had to know that wasn't true. This undermines these institutions and it puts America at risk.
Before we let you go, what is your timeline for 2024 in terms of making a decision?
Oh, goodness, only the Lord knows precisely when we will, but Susan and I are thinking sometime late spring, early summer. The two of us will have to make a final decision and then begin to campaign if we decide we're going to get into the race.
He is former Secretary of State Mike Pompeo. The new book, Never Give an Inch, Fighting for the America I Love. Secretary of State Pompeo, thanks so much for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thank you both. Bless you. Have a good day.
Thanks, you too. And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
There's only one radio show in Chicago talking about today's biggest stories and telling you what they really mean. That show is this one, Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560, The Answer.
When you're serious about your concealed carry training and education and are ready to learn from an active police officer with a teaching degree, check out Illinois Concealed Carry Training in Midlothian. You'll learn safe, responsible firearm use, home defense planning, conflict avoidance, situational awareness, and how to remain physically, morally, and financially safe in the event you must use your firearm in self-defense or the defense of another.